such a random thing. Before I even ask you how you doing, I apologize. You know, I watched Luck of the Irish the other day.
What made you watch it?
We were just looking for something to watch, and Joshua was like, "Oh, a Disney Channel movie," and I was like, "Ah, I haven't seen one of those in forever." And we went down a rabbit hole, and landed on Luck of the Irish. And shout out to Disney Channel really being DEI before we had the language DEI. So yeah, that's
Nah, for real. I never thought I never thought of it that way, but they definitely were ahead of the wave on the DEI movement for sure.
they were.
And a lot of the movies, like a lot of Disney Channel original movies, were just really good movies. I don't know if we're biased because we grew up with them, but I feel like they've aged well. I feel like you could show them to kids today, and the message is still going to be there. Will they receive it? Don't know. But the message is the message, so it transcended time.
Yeah, they were good movies. They had pretty decent plots. The lesson and takeaway was there. Luck of the Irish could not ever be remade with another demographic in there. I do not see if you go back and watch Luck of the Irish with your adult brain and understand, what is going on. It talked about how, Irish, well, not Irish immigrants, but Irish Americans were treated when they first got to the country and, how they were, this basically lower class, second class citizen. Great, great lesson in there for people to listen. But if you put that with Black people, if you put that with Latinos, it doesn't hit the same because America is America, right? But you can talk about second class citizens as long as they're white is essentially what the movie was about. But great movie, great rewatch. But I just thought about it. I said, "Ha! You take the same plot and change up the color a little bit. People want to talk about gingers, but people don't want to talk about fill in the blank." I ain't gonna say it, but yeah, I digress. Disney Channel, you did your big one.
You just made me think about something that I saw because we hark back to a time that people probably do not realize, but the lists are somewhere, so I'll post them in conjunction with this for context. But a group of us, the homies, as we like to call ourselves, used to do these rankings of like different things. And I think we did Disney shows, not movies. But I wonder what a ranking of Disney movies would be because we would usually do like 25 to 30. So it was a pretty large list, but that also reminded me of That's So Raven and Raven Symone because I'm pretty sure that was number one for show. It was probably top three, had to be. But she recently was on some podcast and released her round Mount Rushmore of Disney Channel stars. But there was
Mhm.
a bit of hoopla about it. Did you see this? Did you see this post? Okay. So you know who all the hoopla was about.
Mhm.
Who shouldn't be in there. Okay, for context, can you let the people know who the four people are if you remember them? I can try to find a picture if you don't.
Raven Simone said it would be herself, it would be Shia LaBeouf, it would be Lee Thompson Young, the famous Jet Jackson, and oh, why am I blanking on the fourth?
Was Miley the fourth or am I tripping?
She was not the fourth. She did not put her in that because she said my
It was
Hillary Duff, Hillary Duff, Lizzie McGuire, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And me personally, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't think I can disagree with the Raven Simone, but this pretty much tracks. But I don't see why people hating on Lee Thompson Young like that. I don't get the hate.
Well, you know what? I think it's less of hate and more of a gap in time. Like he was with us for a short amount of time, but Disney Channel, like he had his impact, that was fine, and then that opened the door for a lot of other shows that became more cult classics than Jet Jackson.
Yeah,
But you objectively look at coming from Raven's perspective, if you look at objectively the time of her Mount Rushmore, it makes sense because these were the people from her perspective that laid the foundation for everybody else to have. a new generation Mount Rushmore. Like, Miley Cyrus, I think is great and probably up there. But if she did come after that era, you looking at Mount Rushmore to say Raven's Mount Rushmore is to say who put y'all on. Like
Yeah.
she gave Miley her flowers, right? And the fact that I think Disney gave Miley some large award, lifetime achievement, something like that, whatever it was, and there was a lot of stink around that it didn't go to Raven first.
Hmm.
Right. So, I mean, you can talk about social and identity politics in that, but it's not knocking Miley at all. But if you were looking at who was there first and who had this impact, hell, the Ravens Mount Rushmore came from back when Disney Channel did all those damn crossover music videos of Circle of Life and all of that.
Yeah.
Miley wasn't in that one at first. So,
She was later. She was on the separate. 'Cause I think Hannah Montana was what? Oh, late 2000s, maybe it was mid. It was like right after, but the star definitely wasn't as bright as Ravens during her run, of course. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see Disney Channel kind of having this I wouldn't call it a resurgence, right? But I think we're just seeing a lot of those actors and actresses find their way back into popular media for one reason or another. And I think they're about hitting that like 20-year-ish mark. So it's just kind of like, I think we're finally in a space where we can appreciate what they did in that time, truly. All of them can get their flowers. But yeah, that's been interesting discourse. I do think it's interesting that they wanted or that people thought Orlando Brown could be on the Mount Rushmore. I don't dislike the argument. If somebody had him there, I wouldn't feel the need, to argue. But I think Lee Thompson Young deserves it too. But like you said, more so to the point of Raven's time. And I don't think it was a slight for her to leave Orlando Brown off, although some might believe that. But yeah, so
yeah.
interesting time.
I mean, when people start to do Mount Rushmore, it's like you have to stop just picking random names out the sky and say these are the four people I want to put on there. Like if you are going to create a Mount Rushmore, it has to have um some objective to what the agreement is going to be. Is this a Mount Rushmore of, people who paved the way? Is it a Mount Rushmore and we just looking at icons? Are we looking at, people who had the biggest ratings, right? So what are you putting in your selection criteria for a Mount Rushmore? I wouldn't put Orlando Brown in that. No shade, and I'm not even looking at, him and his antics now. I'm just saying like Orlando Brown, respectfully, was in addition to or connected to Raven. So if you go to put him on the Mount Rushmore, it would be Raven, right? It's like he doesn't exist in the Disney sphere for me
Mm,
without he had a career before and a career after, don't get me wrong, but what got him the notoriety of Disney was That's So Raven. I know Christy Carlson Romano from Even Stevens said, "Nah, it ain't Shia LaBeouf," and I'm gonna tell you why. I still ain't heard her say why, but Shia LaBeouf in the Disney sphere had Even Stevens. He then broke out and had True Confessions, and that one, who was cutting the onions? Somebody in my house, because every time I watch that, when he like breaks down in the library, like I weep. But we were getting real authentic stories or intentional stories of mental health, family dynamic, race, ethnicity, class, uh, you know, different, differently abled people with true confessions, just a whole lot of different things that people now have to say, we have to make sure that we have this type of story and work around that. Like back then, I just feel like, and maybe again, times are a little different, but they were just stories. They weren't identified stories. It's like we're not about to write a black story. Like even That's So Raven, it didn't even start off as a black led show.
right.
She was not supposed to be the lead. It became that way and then became this cult classic of, these things. And now you have Cheetah Girls and all these other things that kind of came from that. So they were just stories. They weren't fill in the blank story. But that's my soapbox. But yeah, we watch Luck of the Irish and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
No, that is what's up. And side note, I love when we had these random tangents before we actually get into the check-in because I want to say this is the second time in a row that this has happened.
I'm glad.
So I love it. I feel like we should make it a segment at this point.